Namaste. Today is day 55 of my Hindi challenge, and I know it's been a long time, several weeks actually, since my last update. I want to kind of look closely at what I've been doing today, so it might not be very interesting for some people. Other people, I think this will be a chance to see something that you don't normally see. So, in a previous video, I talked about the D95, how I use that technique to get to know the words really well. It's the dictation until you reach 95% proficiency, which is how many of the words you spelled correctly. I should focus a little bit on why I think spelling matters. Spelling matters when you're learning a new language because the spelling is two things. It is the name of the word. That's the word that we're talking about. Here is not the same thing as here. They're two different things. That's why hearing, H-E-R-E-I-N-G or H-E-R-I-N-G does not exist. But hearing, H-E-A-R-I-N-G, does exist. That's very important. That's one thing, that the spelling is the sort of name of the word. The second thing is this. If you are mishearing the word, you're misunderstanding the grammar, or your understanding of the whole sentence is not strong enough. So this is why when people write things like should of, I should have done something, and they put should of, O-F, they're really misunderstanding. There is no of that comes after should of. We use of. That's not how we use the word of in English. Have, it is have. Like, I have done this. I should have done this. Right? Both of them are referring to the past. So you see that should have is like have in the sense of past. I have been there. I should have been there. I would have been there. You see, they're all the same thing. So of sounds like of, but it really is have. Anyway, short little grammar lesson in English. If you're misspelling it, you're confusing things. And actually, the world of that language becomes simpler when you can make the connections that spelling provides you. In some languages, the spelling is more important than in others, meaning in some languages, this historical spelling gives us a clue as to the meaning of the words. I'm talking about something else now. This is a totally different lesson. But when you're learning a new language, the spelling is important because it tells you about the pronunciation and also the grammar. So here's what I mean. In Spanish, we have está and están. They're very, very hard to hear the difference of, especially in speech. When people are speaking quickly, they sound almost the same. ¿Dónde está? ¿Dónde están? Very, very different. A very small difference at times. In Hindi, there's the exact same change. He and he. It's this nasalization or an N sound that changes from is to are. In English, they sound very different. We don't get them confused very often. But in Spanish and Hindi, that is, people who are learning those languages, you can get confused because you heard the wrong one. And when you hear the wrong one, this affects your answer. It affects what you're looking for. It affects the understanding of that part of the conversation. So when I do a text, I have to listen very carefully. Am I hearing the word he or am I hearing the word he? To determine that, I need to listen then to the whole sentence. So I'm not practicing spelling so that I can practice spelling. I'm practicing spelling so that I can prove that I understand the whole sentence. When I misspell something, it's probably because I misunderstood the sentence. In only a few cases could I say that I spelled it wrong, but it didn't really matter in that case. Sometimes I think that is true. But in most cases, it's because I was wrong about it. I didn't know what that word was. I didn't know what the word was doing in that sentence. So let me show you specifically what I'm talking about. So first, a little disclaimer. I'm going to show you some really detailed stuff. This might be just more than you're interested in, and therefore it'll be very, very boring. but this could be helpful to some people, and I'm going to show you some things in Hindi in a minute. This right here is a conversation from the text, this textbook back here. I'll show you that in a second. But I want to show you how long I worked on this. So this was day 32. I did the dictation one time. My goal is 95%. There's 131 words. And I only got 93 correct. I missed 38. So it's a 71% rate. The words I missed were here. I studied these words. And I'll come back to this mistake up here in the beginning is very important. So I'll show you that in a second. Then a couple days later, next day I did it again. I got 80% with only 26 mistakes. When was this? 33 days later, I did it again. I got 93%. My goal is 95%. So I studied these words, and I felt pretty good. Pretty confident that the next time I would get it correct. However, this is 2 days later, I think. 2 days later, I did it again. I got 92%. So what happened? Well, if you look over here, you'll see these are the errors that I circled, and I've rewritten them over here. There's one word in particular, shok, which means hobby, and that's what this is about. I misspelled it. I put shek instead of shok. And so, no, shok instead of shok. So, it's like when we transliterate it, we usually do an O sound, S-H-O. Okay, I wrote this, but it's not that. It's S-H-A-U, S-H-A-U-Q, instead of S-H-O-Q. So that was my mistake. And I did this repeatedly, and there's a couple other words that were repeated. That's why I didn't get it. So, actually, I think I went and did an easier one a couple times. And that was the easier one. And then I came back to it again. And finally got 98%. I only missed 3 words. These are the 3 words. Kelna, and Hindustani, and Koi. And I looked at those, and those are very obvious. I know exactly why I got those wrong. So let me just jump back here, and I'll show you that I started on the 21st of July and ended on the 30th of July. So this took me over a week to get this conversation. And every time was less than an hour, but this is probably my fifth iteration, so it may have been up to 5 hours, probably 4 or 5 hours that I spent on this. But of course, I learned a lot. So I'm going to show you one thing that I learned in particular. It's really, really important. Here, this comes from page 289, about halfway through the book. And this conversation, I really liked it because it's the kind of thing that I'm going to use. It's all about hobby. So don't worry if you can't read the script. I have rewritten it for you, and I'm going to show you why I think it's so important. So here, to Ajay batao. Oh, actually, I can play this for you. Hold on.
तो अजय बताओ तुम्हारे क्या-क्या शौक है?
मुझे संगीत बहुत पसंद है।
अच्छा, क्या तुम्हें कोई साज बजाना आता है?
नहीं, मुझे बजाना तो नहीं आता, बस सुनना पसंद है।
तो अजय बताओ तुम्हारे क्या-क्या शौक है? Now, the way he says it, and let me kind of zoom in on that. Let me play that for you again so you can hear it.
तो अजय बताओ तुम्हारे क्या-क्या शौक है?
Now listen again to the end of that line.
तो अजय बताओ तुम्हारे क्या-क्या शौक है?
He kind of devocalizes it. He kind of not quite mumbles it, but तुम्हारे क्या-क्या शौक है? Really, really low volume. I can't tell from that recording whether he's saying he or he. And the difference between he and he is the difference between is and are. It's really important. In Spanish, that's the difference between, is and are. In Spanish, it's like está or están, which can easily get confused. It's just this little nasalization, just like that separates the two. But this affects the question. He's not asking, do you have a hobby? He's asking about hobbies. I'm not exactly sure if he's saying, what hobbies do you have, or do you have hobbies? I'm not totally sure. I think it's what hobbies do you have. I wish this had translations, direct translations of these conversations. That would be much, much better. Please, if you are writing a textbook for me, please include direct translations. So this is what it's something like this. What hobbies do you have? And he says, Mujhe sangeet pasand hai. I like music. Now notice that he says he, not hen, because he's saying one thing. It's like in Spanish, me gusta, not me gustan. Me gusta escuchar música. So let's go back to this. The first time I did this is kind of a mess, but I put he, and it should have been hen. If we look here, that's my correction right here from that. I just wrote it kind of roughly straight across. He. Now, because if I hadn't gone through this process of writing it down and then checking word for word, one word at a time, and even paying attention to that little teeny, you can't even see it on the camera, but there's a little dot right there. That's the difference between he and hen. But grammatically, it makes a big difference. When you're speaking, when you're listening, it's going to make a difference whether someone's talking about one or more than one. So that was basically a lesson, a Hindi grammar lesson, just in the omission of this one dot. I needed to find that. I needed to see that I had missed that when I did the recording. I could have listened to that recording, 10 times, and I probably wouldn't even have recognized that you could miss that easily. Again, when he says it on the recording, you can't even hear one or the other, but it has to be hen if he's talking about plural. Now, to go on from there, these two lines right here, he says, "Acha, क्या तुम्हें कोई साज बजाना आता है? नहीं, मुझे बजाना तो नहीं आता, बस सुनना पसंद है." Now here again, by focusing on this so carefully, I'm really pulling out all this applicable information. So saz is instrument, bajana is the word that goes for it. It's not khelna, which is to play, meaning to play a game. It's to play an instrument. Many other languages, I'd say most other languages, don't use the word play, the same word for playing a game as for playing an instrument. But this proves it right here. Kya tumhe koi saz bajana aata hai. There's also this construction here, which is very common in Hindi. Ata is coming, or came to you. Aata hai. So it's more like has the ability to play an instrument come to you. We also use this when asking about, do you speak a language? They might say, has the speaking of it come to you? Again, by focusing on the line and what it means, not the direct translation, not the word-for-word translation, but the actual meaning of it, that's how you understand it. That's how you'll be able to apply it to other situations. So he says, no, nahi, mujhe bajana to nahi ata. I'm not sure what this to does. That's the kind of question I would ask someone who has studied Hindi formally. I wouldn't just ask anybody, why is that to there? It's the kind of thing that's probably hard to explain. But he uses the same ata, nahi ata. He doesn't have to repeat the he because he said nahi ata. And then bas sunna pasand hai. Just listen, liking. I like it. Bas sunna pasand hai. So only listening I like, basically. And again, when he says it sounds like sunnah, but it's bas sunnah, sunana pasand. And that word I got wrong many times because there's a long sunnah instead of sunnah or sun. So sunan, I guess. I just like to listen. So I just want to show you a deep dive into this, sort of a really close look at how, by paying attention to individual words and even the spelling of the word, it's going to help you to find, it's going to help your language development because you're able to make the most of just a few lines of text. Out of these 4 lines of text, I'm pulling out tons of information. And because the context is something that I care about, asking someone about their hobbies, and in particular music, and I love music, this is going to carry me. I could probably use this in every conversation I use from now on. I'm sure I can ask about hobbies, or not hobbies, ask about something else that uses this similar construction. So that's why, to me, it's worth it to spend hours on a particular conversation, looking at it. It's also this process of slowly improving on something is motivating enough, rather than saying, "Oh, I still don't understand Hindi. Oh, I still don't understand Hindi. I still am not good enough. I'm still too slow." Rather than that, I focus on really small milestones and saying, "Okay, I'm gonna tackle this one here. I think I can use this. I'm gonna focus on this." And I don't know it, and I don't know it, and I do it, and then I do know it 95%, and I move on to the next text. It is possible to choose something that's too difficult. In that case, you just kind of back up a couple of chapters and try something else. On top of that, that to me is the best way for you to remember vocabulary. Asal mein means actually and in fact, but I know how he uses it here. In this text here, the guy says, "What are your hobbies?" He says, "I like cooking. In fact, I'm studying to be a chef." And so that sort of usage has now stuck in my brain, and I can apply it to a new situation in the future. Okay? The point is this. You can't just do one thing. You can't just read the book and just do every single exercise straight through. You can't just listen to audio programs like Pimsleur. You can't just watch Bollywood movies. You need a little bit of everything. No, a lot. You need a lot of everything. But at times, it takes looking at just a few lines of text really closely to pull out as much as you can. Not just the vocabulary, but also the grammar. The spelling helps the grammar. The spelling helps the pronunciation. The spelling also helps the memory. Sometimes you'll remember how the word is spelled and therefore sort of recreate what that word sounds like in your mind and how to use it. That's just what I try to do. If it's fun, I'll do it. If I can understand it, I'll do it. If I don't get it, if it's way too hard for me, then I'll just leave it for later. I'll say, "Oh, this is a cool text, cool book, cool movie, whatever," and it's not time for it yet. I think a lot of people will muscle through something just because they think, because it's hard, they think, well, since this is hard, and if I pay attention really, if I work on it really hard and use a dictionary and look up every single word, I'll get it. That's true, you will, but that's not going to help you the next time you pick up a book because there's all brand new words in it. It's not going to help you next time you go try to strike up a conversation with somebody, because those words in that book are probably not the words that you needed in this conversation. So it's really about building up this base slowly and steadily by understanding what you're doing. It's hard to do something that's too easy at first. I mean, pretty much anything, nothing's too easy for me yet. Eventually, yeah, I'll get bored with stuff that's too easy. But almost everything is too hard. So I'm looking for things that are understandable, movies that are very simple, songs in which they sing very slowly, and the first half of a language textbook. Talking with people who also speak English, so they can all understand, explain to me what they just said. That's the beginner stages, and that's definitely where I'm still living. So that's where you have to keep working at it. And if you understand it, it'll stay interesting. What's boring is almost always what's too difficult. I've learned this as a teacher. When someone says this is boring, they usually mean it's too hard. Of course, it could be too easy, but as a beginner, there is no too easy. So if it's interesting, it's kind of a good rule of thumb. If it's interesting to me, then it's probably something I need at that point. All right, thanks so much for watching. I'll update again in a few more days. It's getting close to the end of the Hindi challenge, so we'll see how it goes. Bye.